So this week we're back to Amazon Prime Video after... Wait, no, last week was Amazon Prime Video, wasn't it?
It was.
It was.
2 in a row.
2 in a row. This week is The Boys, which is the sort of superhero black comedy series produced by Seth Rogen. Follows a sort of parody on the Justice League called The Seven, as well as the people that they've affected along the way, because this is a superhero team that's not very nice, because they are pretty much driven by capitalism and merchandise, and they leave a path of destruction along the way. But yeah, what did you think, Phil?
Broadly speaking, I liked it.
Me too.
There are bits within it, and obviously we'll go through it a bit, but that I wasn't as fond of. But broadly speaking, I thought it was quite good. And obviously, like you say, it's kind of superheroes through the lens of obviously for profit and PR and spin, and like, yeah, it's taking almost that idea to the extreme of Hayward. It's a very cynical view of what if superheroes were actually real.
Yes, I think the whole show is... Whereas I think Tales from the Loop last week, I think, was a very optimistic show, I think this is very cynical.
And also, the Tales from the Loop was a lot of individual stories. Obviously, this is more your typical streaming show of like one, it keeps rolling.
Yeah. And generally, I think the story is pretty consistent. I think the characters all get an arc, at least.
Yeah.
Pretty great cast. We've got Carl Urban as Billy Butcher. Popping up is Erin Moriarty, who's really good as Starlight. You've got Simon Pegg making guest stars. Giancarlo Esposito, returning from The Mandalorian, as a very interesting character who I hope we see a bit more of in Season 2, which is coming soon.
I think it's coming very soon, isn't it? Because I think I was looking up about this, because I watched this obviously just in the last few days. And it seems like a Season 2 teaser has actually already dropped. Or... Yes,
but there's no release date just yet.
No.
But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Season 2. I thought it was a really good show.
It definitely grew on me as I went through it.
Yeah, I think
I'm going to be honest. Like the first episode, whilst interesting, I was a bit like, oh, is this just going to be taking a lot of easy pot shots of superheroes? And there's just certain and also definitely, not sure if me and you differ on this, but I definitely can do a little bit of gore, but I did find certain shots in this which is
oh god, yeah.
well, yeah, it was just weird to the point of unpleasant.
Yeah. But yeah, by the sounds of it actually toned down some of the stuff from the comic on which it's based, so that's quite interesting.
Yeah, and like I say, and just to go back to your last point, I think the cast is really good. Carl Urban, he was in Thor Ragnarok, wasn't it?
Yes, and
I've seen him in a
Scourge.
He was in Lord of the Rings as well.
Yeah.
But no, I liked him in it very much. Erin Moriarty again, stand out.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, it's got a really good cast, and it's quite well, directed and reasonably well written throughout.
Yeah.
It does. There are points where it definitely. There are times when it puts its nose up a bit and goes, "Oh, comic book stories would do this," and then it just does another stereotype from a comic book story a few minutes later.
Yes.
So it does. Yeah, it's a little bit raise an eyebrow at times and be like, okay.
We'll start with non-spoilers. But yeah, generally. Yeah, I think that this is a very Amazon-feeling show, going back to what I was saying a few weeks ago, in that it's a bit like Good Omens, in that its narrative is way more loose, and its characters are way less focused, which I think works to some extent. But also, it's not a very sort of wholesome show. And I don't think it's a show that you should really binge either, similar to what we were saying last week.
The first few episodes were like that, but I'm going to be... I definitely, maybe because I was running a bit behind, but definitely the back half of the season was a lot easier to binge.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Where as storylines start reaching their head, especially like 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. Plus,
pretty easy.
I think there's a point in.
But I agree with you. Like the early ones, are kind of I left it and I was like, oh, that's enough. Today.
Yeah, I think there's also a point in the show where you really realise what the whole show is tonally, where without giving anything away, there's some Spice Girls music. Do you know which bit I mean?
I think so. Yeah.
It's the bit where the show just really sort of kicks into its own thing, which is this brash, outlandish, ridiculous show with a loose moral centre, even from what we see as the protagonists. And I think it works generally. I really enjoyed it the whole way through. I thought Homelander was a very interesting copy of Superman, who I think is actually pretty well fleshed out, considering he's kind of, without giving too much away, the antagonist of this series.
Yeah, and it's quite well done in that way that you almost can't tell whether he is the whether he is just a tool used by the corporation or whether he does have agency in it. But as the show goes on, you see more and more that he's definitely the driver. Yeah, and it's interesting to see the internal dynamics of the Seven as well as a group. But yeah, no, just to pick up on Homelander, and obviously in the first episode, it does present like the Justice League, basically, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's actually
even the retired, because one of the heroes retires, and that's one of the very first things that happens.
Yeah.
Who is basically Green Lantern.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think like they're pretty direct parody, but I think like they actually managed to. I think they generally managed to sort of. They're not like outright parodies in that I think they're still very fleshed out characters, and they kind of. It's a very smart, I think, commentary on what sort of these characters would be like in the real world.
Yeah, and well, it's and again, like we say, it's through almost that. It's almost through a very cynical lens.
Yeah,
though.
And you get a point of view character who I think is pretty sympathetic. Huey Campbell.
Yeah, and well, to be honest, that's almost one of the themes of the show is the cynicism. It's almost not to plug our own podcast too much. There is almost a theme in the show of cynicism versus optimism.
Yeah. Yeah, because you get, well, in fact, both the sort of main characters, Billy Butcher and Huey Campbell, kind of represent two different sides of the same coin.
And equally on the superhero side, you've got Homelander and Starlight.
Yes. Yeah, exactly, yeah. They're very good characters.
Cynical versus optimist.
Yeah, they're very good characters, I think. And I think like the look of the show, the production value, shot on Red Weapon 8K cameras, and I think like it looks almost like it could be a movie. It's incredibly high production value, I found. There's some bits where you see Homelander flying next to an aeroplane, and honestly, like, to me it actually looked better than some of the shots in like Man of Steel.
I thought it was like there were definitely some shots where the CGI was really, really good. I almost found it was when they gave into that kind of more graphic side when it started to look worse.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean.
I'll go to a very stretched out shot in the pilot, which is just basically blood.
Oh right, okay.
If you know what I mean. And that was just silly.
Yeah. It's flawed, but overall I think it's a really interesting, unique show, and I think Amazon's really good at that. In that they make shows which aren't always necessarily sleek and consistent, but overall I think like that gives you a lot. They've given themselves a lot more flexibility in their storytelling, and I think it ends up with a really interesting show.
Yeah, and I think it is possibly what we're seeing is that Amazon as a streamer gives maybe their creators more freedom. Yeah. And that's always good to see.
Yeah.
Not that I've got any particular streamer in mind that doesn't. I think all of them do to a degree. Just obviously the range of stuff, even keeping what we're watching within the scope of just our podcast. We've watched 3 very different shows from Amazon Prime.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very.
Which, yeah.
And this one,
which I think is very.
This one's a similar length to Tales from the Loop. It's 55 to 66 minutes throughout the series, but I don't think any of them really dragged for me.
Early ones did for me.
Okay.
But as the pace picked up, and as you work towards that kind of climax point in like the end of the season, it did just start flowing and flowing. You know, it started going really well.
Yeah.
But I think possibly it just obviously the show had to start with obviously a few episodes of we got to get everyone together, which I don't hold against it. But yeah, as a result, it did. The early episodes did seem like they dragged a bit more. I definitely went into this expecting it to be like Man of Steel-ish, and that like it's got some good action to it, but the dialogue and the character work is terrible. But actually, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and like it seems like a odd comparison to make because there's obviously a film.
Did you?
This does seem like it's going for the.
Going back to that quickly, did you say Man of Steel has got better action sequences than dialogue sequences?
I mean, it's more a criticism of the dialogue than a praise of the action.
I was going to say, the only bits in Man of Steel I like are the dialogue scenes.
Maybe I'm thinking of Batman v Superman.
Man of Steel has that bit with Clark and his dad talking about whether he should be Superman or not, and whether he should do something with his power or whether he should keep himself to himself. I think Man of Steel's good for dialogue.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Batman v Superman.
Okay, yeah.
I'm thinking of watching an entire 2.5 hour movie for that 8 minutes of Batman v Superman and Granny's tea or whatever, Granny's peach tea. Iced tea.
When Lex Luthor pisses in a jar or something.
Yeah, Batman v Superman, far better action than dialogue, but neither of them are very good. Anyway, that was a big stid. Anyway, the reason we're making those comparisons is that this seems to do better. The themes in this seem to be comparable, but done better executed. Almost, dare I say, The Boys seems a bit more self-aware.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. And it is even though Homelander's got a bit of Captain America in him and stuff, this is broadly more DC than Marvel if you're going in to expect a certain tone.
Yes. And I think it's because it goes the DC thing of people. Well, I mean, if we're saying DC, I mean Justice League thing of everyone obviously having kind of powers naturally or through celestial means, whereas obviously the Avengers, which is kind of the big, or at least the currently prominent Marvel team up, obviously has people like Iron Man who create their own powers.
Yeah. But yeah, this is for me. This is kind of what Suicide Squad should be. I think sort of R-rated, compelling characters, anti-heroes, that sort of thing. And I think, if you have been wanting something sort of within the kind of DC tone, but in my opinion a little bit better executed, then I think this is a real good go.
I think it's if you like the kind of more
cynical.
I hate using the word, but if you want more edgier superhero content, The Boys is for you.
Yeah.
If you like it more MCU, where it's reasonably, it's good, but at times a bit inoffensive, and kind of just telling your standard stories, then maybe this will be a bit too dark. I recommend. So we've now done 3 Amazon shows, and broadly we've got 3 recommends. We had a light recommend with Good Omens. I'd call this a middle recommend, and Tales from the Loop was a strong recommend.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think they cover. Yeah, I think throughout this whole season, actually, we've covered a lot of very different kind of shows. I think something very bingeable, like I Am Not Okay With This, where it's 20-minute hits. Then you've got something like that, and then you sort of go all the way to Tales from the Loop, which is sort of slow-paced storytelling, and this is somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Spoilers?
Yeah, there's not too much to spoil in this, is there, really?
No, and to be honest, rather than... Because obviously last episode we ended up doing a very long discussion. And to be fair, Tales from the Loop, I think, more caused for episode by episode, play by play.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a rolling story, we'll go into spoilers now, but we may not go through it episode by episode. We may just pick out certain plot beats and stuff like that we don't want to spoil otherwise. So if you're... Look in the show notes and you'll see the time code to skip to the outro if you haven't seen it.
So
episode 5 was the weakest episode.
Let's have a look. What was in episode 5?
That was the one with the Christian expert.
Yes. Yes, I do remember. I mean,
because it was... I enjoyed it, but it was just retreading stuff that other shows have done probably more thoughtfully, which is, fundamental Christians are crazy, am I right?
There was one particularly great scorn from Billy Butcher in that episode, to be fair.
Yeah, but it just felt like it was beating a dead horse at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, in the context of the show, it kind of made sense, and obviously they allude to it in the pilot.
Yeah.
Obviously with that religious talking head being gay. Oh my god, scandal. But it didn't feel particularly new or original.
No.
The main kind of redeeming bit was the end, obviously, when Starlight gives a speech.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she gets some really good character moments. I think she's probably one of the best developed characters in this show.
Yes. And what I kind of like about her character is the constant reiteration that it's not naive, it's hopeful. And I think that's such an important distinction that goes across so many different things, especially in more political discourse. Certain ideas can get written off as a person being naive, when it's not that they're impossible. They're just and they're completely acknowledging the unlikeliness of them, as she is with obviously her view of superheroism.
Yeah.
But she's hoping it can be better, and I think that was really good character work and a really good theme to have underwriting it, because it would be so easy to have the blonde female superhero be naive.
It helps that they've written the other members of the Seven as they're not like world weary, they're just straight up assholes for the majority of this.
Yeah, and
they're not like, they haven't become cynical because of how long they've been around and doing this kind of thing. They're just kind of the worst. They've
been twisted by being in the public light, by being celebrities, basically.
Yeah, but then Starlight, I think, sort of adds to their characters, and sort of, I think a couple of the members of the Seven, especially, who have we got? Queen Maeve, the sort of Wonder Woman-esque character. I think like it has some really interesting interactions with Starlight, and it kind of like helps the team sort of rediscover some of the optimism.
Yeah, and Queen Maeve, I think especially, like, whilst I agree with you on the other characters, she definitely does seem like someone who's world weary.
Yeah.
Like, she seems like she may have had the same optimism as Starlight at one point, but just through years of having to deal with that bollocks as being just worn down, and she ends up being quite cynical and having, like, obviously alcohol issues throughout the series.
Yeah.
And obviously her complicated relationship with Homelander as well.
Yeah. Do you reckon? I think as a show, generally as well, I'd say this probably passes the old the Bechdel test.
Oh, where every aspect comes in and is useful.
Well, for like female characters, they don't only talk about men.
Oh, that
and
one.
They talk.
So I was thinking, what test was I thinking? Yeah, the Bechdel test. Yes.
So you get several named characters. They all talk to each other and not just.
I'm thinking of Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, no, not that.
Although also that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose.
But no, you're quite right. The Bechdel test now. It's because I was reading up a lot of TV trope stuff, and I got them all mixed up in my head. But
yeah, no, I think generally it's a very good show. There's a great episode with Haley Joel Osment, who pops up at one point as well, which I thought was really interesting.
Hmm.
And I liked that parody of kind of like him in a young child role as a superhero type thing. I thought that was really good fun.
Yeah, no, I thought it was very interesting how throughout the show, obviously, they were almost like every person with powers was doing like legit hero work, but also had to do like fake media hero work. And his obviously was saying about how obviously as a child star he'd done all this, but then he's kind of fallen into a bit of disrepute and like no one's really that interested in him anymore.
Yeah.
And it is like interesting to say like, oh, the heroes still just play the heroes in the movies.
Yeah.
Even though the movies are arguably pretty fake and stuff like that. We didn't really talk about her in non-spoilers, but what did you think of Elizabeth Shue? He played Stillwell.
Oh yeah, no, she was great. It's a bit okay. Yeah, Stillwell was a bit of a. I think they've done that trope in a few things by now, but again, I think like I liked seeing. There's always got to be a character there who's kind of one step ahead of things, and then that's kind of her downfall towards the end of the series. I would have liked to see her in season 2, but
yes. Were you surprised at that kind of twist at the end of?
Somewhat, yeah. I think it was gory.
Yeah, no, I thought that was because obviously it brings to a head a few stories. Obviously, it brings to mostly Billy Butcher's one about searching for his wife. But obviously, he's holding her hostage, and then I thought that was quite the twist because obviously Homelander's probably got a bunch of powers, but he was just like, nah.
Yeah. You know what? I found Homelander terrifying, and that's a credit to I can't remember the actor's name. Let's have a look. Anthony Starr. Yeah, I think like every scene he is that it's quite hard. But you see like in superhero parodies and like Robot Chicken and stuff, like the characters are kind of just like hammed up and stuff, and it doesn't come across as very menacing. Whereas I think Tony Starr as Homelander, like he could literally do anything, and the way he turns and goes from like the smiley kind of front-facing Homelander to just suddenly like there's that episode where they go and attempt to rescue those guys on the plane, and like the way he just snaps from one moment to the next is just utterly terrifying, I thought.
Yes, and I thought that was particularly well done and quite powerful scene.
Yeah.
Because obviously the idea was that they went and saved the plane, but then they mess it up, and obviously you see a bit of the dynamic between Maeve and Homelander. She's like, no, can we save at least someone? And he's like, no, that's witnesses.
Yeah, and like the way he like turns around to one of them with the eyes glowing, Superman style, and just says like, sit the fuck back down. It's just like, he's a bloody psychopath. And credit to the costume department and the hair and makeup department, I thought as well, like did a fantastic job. Like he goes from the sort of the neat Captain America hair to like when he's disgruntled, it kind of goes a bit wild and like flaps down on his face and stuff. I thought it was really good. And like the hero suits themselves as well, I think looked pretty. They didn't look too tacky. Like they weren't just straight up parodies. They had good texture to them. Like the sort of the muscle suits themselves, I don't think were a terrible effect. I thought they looked fairly convincing. It's just a generally really well produced show.
Yeah, I thought it was just there's far too much of the story to talk about here, but I thought generally it was all pretty good. Like there were beats I didn't like, and there's individual character moments I was about and there's some that sometimes, like I say, it seemed to be rolling its eyes at traditional superhero stuff, but then some of the dialogue was like straight out of a comic book. Not in a bad way necessarily, but like it was just that kind of cliched dialogue, and I was like, well, are you making fun of it? Are you copying it? These are kind of like small nitpicks on what is a very solid show.
Yeah, definitely would recommend.
Yeah, definitely.